lot of negative coverage in the national media about firefighters recently. The scenes you've just witnessed, though, don't fully explain what's going on. I went to Euston fire station on the 1st of November to visit the picket line, to speak to firefighters and other trade unionists, to see what they've got to say about what's happening.
Brian Coleman's been asked to lift the threat of sackings with the 188 policy, and he has blatantly, flat out refused to do that today and last night on the radio, and basically it's just inflaming the situation, because I can say every single firefighter that I know and meet, I could probably speak for and say if we lifted the threat of sack, we would not go on strike anymore.
We're here today to show solidarity with the firefighters who are involved in a dispute about cost cutting that is putting lives at danger. We've got a similar dispute in the underground, and we're here to show that united we can win this fight. Well, it's very clear to us that the Conservative left government in London is going forward with cuts that are going to cut to the bone the services that people rely on. The dispute in the firefighters, our dispute in the tube are all connected. It's all about cutting costs and putting, frankly, lives in danger.
It seems to me then that it's taken a lot for the firefighters to go out and strike. And what they're striking about is safety. And they're striking about the safety of our services that are about to be cut. And I was talking to firefighters on the picket line, and they told me that a company called AssetCo, who are the private company of the strike breakers who are driving fire engines around during the strike, would be at Southwark fire station at 6 PM for the shift changeover. So that's where I went. What I found when I turned up to Southwark fire station was that firefighters from London and across the country had turned up to protest and picket against the private contractor AssetCo. The mood was cautious though. Everyone seemed aware that the press were watching.
Well, the pure aim of what we're doing today in taking strike action is purely in response to the 188 notices threatening strike, mass dismissals. If they lift that threat and remove the 188, then we'll stop all industrial action immediately. Right. And we're more than willing to reach a negotiated settlement. We've already put forward 3 alternatives. All have been dismissed by the fire brigade. One of which would have made quite significant financial savings to them, but they're adamant they're going to push forward the 12 and 12s, and the real reason they want equal day and night shifts is purely that they can reduce nighttime fire cover.
And so what are the implications of that for the people
in
London?
I mean, it's a slower attendance time, so if your local station actually closes at night, you're going to have to wait for a neighbouring station to arrive. That could be an extra 3-5 minutes, and in a fire every second counts.
The mood darkened when dogs and security were brought to the front gates as the strike breakers began to drift in. There were also stories going around amongst firefighters about a firefighter who'd been run down by a car on a picket line in Croydon. The rumour was that the driver was a manager. Eventually though, the Firefighters Union leadership called a vote to move away from the gates so that every strike-breaking fire engine can enter the station. The main group of firefighters would stand on the other side of the road while a handful of union members would speak to strike breakers as they drove into the station. Before that though, they held a rally.
Well, brothers and sisters, what another magnificent turnout tonight. Pat yourselves on the back for a brilliant turnout here at Southwark to tell the scabs that we will follow them wherever, whenever they come into London, and we'll be sending a message: get out of London and do not come back. And we've been subject to huge vilification in the media over the past week, and I was here last Saturday. And you will recall what the press said in the aftermath of that about violence, about intimidation. Well, the only bit of violence that we've seen today is against one of our members who's now lying in hospital. And I wonder whether the Sun or the Daily Mail will plaster that on the front page tomorrow. And we don't take any pleasure in that at all. I'm sure all of us had our hearts in our throats when we heard that news, and hoping that the comrade recovers, and send our best wishes to his wife and family and his colleagues on the watch. But one thing that has struck me, this dispute started as a local dispute about shifts in the London Fire Brigade, and for some reason it has suited certain people to escalate it and to turn it into a national issue, and to launch the national media against London firefighters in general, and in particular against the Fire Brigades Union. And just think of what they have done this week. Magically, the Daily Mail have a table of every single London firefighter and where they live, what part of the country they live in, including in some cases clearly the name and address of those people. That can only have come from one source. That has come from London Fire Brigade senior management, and they should hang their heads in shame. And then we have, over the weekend, the Mail on Sunday, another friend of firefighters and working people and trade unionists, who magically have apparently submitted a Freedom of Information request about who does secondary employment. And they found a couple of thousand FPU members in London who have registered for secondary employment. Well, I know that London officials, time and again, have put in Freedom of Information requests to the London Fire Brigade. It takes weeks before you get an answer, and it takes months before you get a response, and they try to dodge it every single time to prevent them giving the information that they're required to do. So I don't believe it when the Mail on Sunday claims that they put in a Freedom of Information request. I believe what happened is the same press team working over there at Union Street, again, wanted to do a hatchet job on their own employees, and they provided that information to the Mail on Sunday. We've got an employer who wants to launch a smear campaign against its own employees. They are an utter, complete disgrace. And they have brought in this private contractor, and it amazes me. You speak to Londoners generally, they don't understand, they don't know as yet that their fire engines have been privatised. It's lunacy. The people of London should own those fire engines, not a bunch of parasites like AssetCo are. But they've now gone one step further, of course, and they've got this contract, £12 million or whatever it is, to train people up in some backwater somewhere, give them some Mickey Mouse training course, give them discarded fire kits, and pretend that they are firefighters. We know they're not. I hope the people of London increasingly know they're not, because we've seen the damage that they've done when they've been brought into London, and some of the disastrous consequences. And yet Brian Coleman and Ron Dobson go on television to claim that they've got adequate cover when we're on strike. That's again a shame, and it's a betrayal of London firefighters by both of those people. And AssetCo, let's make no bones about it, if they get away with it, they will go even further. We know they want to privatise the training centre here. AssetCo, if they get their opportunity, will put in a bid to run the London Fire Brigade, and it really will then be the Keystone Cops if they get their way. So we need to send a message loud and clear to the people of London, and to the Fire Authority, and to politicians, and particularly to AssetCo. Keep your greedy, parasitic hands off our fire service. It belongs to the people of London, and we'll protect it.
Thanks very much indeed, mate. A couple of thank yous that we need to.
And so I'm going to leave you with the image that we started with: firefighters protesting against cuts to the service. Firefighters have been attacked in the media, but they're fighting for us, and I think we need to fight with them, and we need to fight with any group of workers who are willing to stand up against the cuts.